We're continuing our interviews with all sorts of different 2022 candidates. And today I'm going to be speaking with Adam Steen, who's a self-described America First candidate endorsed by the former President Donald Trump, currently running a write-in campaign in the 63rd District for the Wisconsin State Assembly. Adam, I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
So indulge me. I know this, we may get through this first question in one word and then we can move on, but it's just a good gut check. Who's the current president of the United States?
Donald Trump.
Oh, the current president is Trump.
No, right now it's Joe Biden, sir.
Okay. Did he legitimately win, do you think? Does his presidency reflect the will of the voters?
I believe, especially here in the state of Wisconsin, we have some major questions that we'd like to ask, and we have not been able to bring those before a judge here in the state of Wisconsin.
Who is preventing you from doing that?
Right now, the only person that we can find is my opponent, Robin Voss. He has said multiple times that he is going to do a full forensic cyber audit when he got off the plane with the president back August of last year. And he has done absolutely nothing of the sort in order to find out really what people want to know, David. They want to know that their ballot counts, their vote is actually counted. That's all they want to know.
And what reason do we have right now to question the results in which Joe Biden won that state by 20,000 votes? What specifically do we have?
In Wisconsin?
Yes.
Let's go to Wisconsin. So we have the Supreme Court announcing their ruling back about a month and a half ago that the ballot drop boxes are and were illegal. There's two methods of delivering your ballot in the state of Wisconsin Constitution by statute. You can deliver it in the mail, or you can deliver it in person to the clerk. The Wisconsin Election Commission decided to add a third option, which is a ballot drop box, which is not clearly defined in the statute. So when the Supreme Court ruled, they said those drop boxes are and were illegal. So there were about 250,000 votes cast.
But Adam, hold on a second. Hold on. I know you're too good to do this to us. You know that if you read that decision, what they found was that there were some locations that were not accessible to individuals with mobility issues, and they said nothing substantive about fraud related to the final count or anything of the sort.
No. I was simply giving you the reasoning. You're exactly right. I would not mean to admit that.
Okay, fair.
Very correct, David. Very, very correct. The amount of ballots that were cast by that method, in lieu of the fact that it doesn't follow the method to deliver the ballot by the Constitution, would in my case bring to question the fact that those ballots, whether legal or not, were cast in an unlawful manner. You're exactly right.
Okay. And do you also admit that while it is totally within your right to extrapolate whatever you want based on that decision, the justices who wrote the dissenting opinion say when people say the types of things you're saying, you're fanning political flames in a way that is not good. You're making people think you're talking about fraudulent results when all they said was some of these weren't accessible to people with disabilities. That's all they said.
So what they said, if you read the final decision, is that the method of delivery is two, sir, right? So there's two methods of delivery in the statute.
Yes.
The Wisconsin Election Commission introduced a third without going through the legislature. So that to me is an extremely scary position to be in. The Supreme Court said that those boxes that were used were not under the method of which delivery was described in the Constitution. So you are correct. I'm not trying to say that the Supreme Court said the election's invalid, none of that.
Good. They just said they should have all been accessible to individuals with disabilities.
Yep. So
fair. Okay.
The next thing that I'd like to point out is we had Justice Gableman's 139-page report, and I would really like for that report to be put before a judge. And I would like the judicial system to actually make a ruling on the findings of that report.
Okay.
So the Wisconsin Election Commission decided to remove special voting deputies, right? They said they were not necessary in 2020. And I believe from my bottom of my heart, my great-grandmother died at 102 at our house.
That they were.
That they were removed. And we had people that were executing the elections and collecting ballots that were not under the Constitution. They were not followed.
Okay, so you've raised a couple of concerns. That's fair, but you're also conceding that on that first one, it's really about disability rights. Let me ask you this:
Yes,
what
sir.
is a forensic election audit? Because, and the reason I ask is everybody I ask has a different explanation, and when I point to audits that have been done, folks will invariably say that's not really the type of audit I'm talking about.
Got it. That's a very fair question, because you're exactly right, David. Let's go across the country, right? You look at Arizona,
Yeah.
you look at Georgia, even here in Wisconsin. The audit that we'd like to find out is what happens to your ballot when it goes through the machine. I'm not telling you the machines are fraudulent. I can't tell you that, David. You can't tell me that.
Okay. I certainly can't tell you the machines are fraudulent because I have no reason to believe that. Yeah.
And I can't either, right?
Good.
So
good.
Can I maybe reframe this discussion a little bit? So if
you can reframe it, but I would love an answer to what you mean by a forensic election audit.
Right, I apologize.
Yeah.
Let me answer. So a forensic audit is when your ballot gets cast, right?
Yes.
The process by which your ballot is cast. Once that ballot goes into, whether it's scanned through a machine, goes into a box in a county courthouse, gets counted,
Yes.
and the total results are finished, I believe that process should be clear to the public. So a forensic audit to me is understanding every step of that process without equivocation.
Okay,
So,
now let me see if I understand it and you tell me the elements that are missing, right? Because I've voted with these types of machines before.
Sure.
I have a ballot. There's two options. I have a ballot. I take my felt Sharpie and I sort of like connect two little black things and make it a fixed line. I feed it in through a machine. Presumably, the machine identifies which line I drew and credits that candidate with a vote. And then my ballot goes into a pile. And then later, you could go back in and count up the pieces of paper with the lines and compare it to the results from the machine. Is that a fair process?
That process
Yeah.
is part of the audit process.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Yes.
Okay. And what else is there?
Well, for me, in Wisconsin, we have a process called early absentee voting.
Okay.
And that's 47 days. That starts September 22nd for the general election.
Yep.
In my opinion, based on I'd say the evidence, if you will, that has never been presented before court, that we have men and women here in Wisconsin. There was a case yesterday that they heard the DOJ brought against a man by the name of Harry Waite. Harry Waite requested a ballot, an absentee ballot, for 5 people with their birth date and their first and last name. That's the only thing you need to request their ballot if they voted absentee in the past. There's no ID required because they've already submitted a request for an absentee ballot. The problem that I have is, let's say that what you and I just described is perfectly flawless.
Yeah.
Right? I'll concede to that. Let's say it's perfectly flawless. If you and I would like to request ballots from an individual who has voted one out of the last 15 election cycles, and we submit it via an absentee ballot in a mailbox or a drop box, there is no way for you and I, based on the process you just defined, to confirm or deny whether or not that ballot was cast by that individual.
So a few things on that, because I've heard and read about this many, many times before. There's a few different things. Number one is, even if what you're saying is true, in theory, someone could do that. I could find someone who hasn't voted in a really long time. I'm admitting you're right. I could try to figure out who hasn't voted in a really long time, request a ballot in their name, and then fill it out and send it in. Fine. In order for us to be able to say it's worth X, Y, or Z audit, investigation, whatever, I would want to, number one, have evidence that happened in numbers that could have swayed the results.
Yes,
and in
sir.
order to believe that, I would have to have reason to think that one side rather than the other was disproportionately doing it. Because even if I grant that what you're saying could be done and was done, if it was done equally by Republicans and Democrats, it doesn't actually change the outcome. Does my math check out at least, Adam? In other words, if 10,000 Republicans do that and 10,000 Democrats do that with these people who haven't voted in a while, Biden still wins by 20,000 votes, right? The math checks out at least. Uh-oh. And was that question too tough? I can't believe that was why he left. Adam, where are you? Oh my, I think he bailed because of that question. What on earth? Adam, don't tell me that question was too difficult. Adam, you're back?
We were on hold.
Yeah, I thought you bailed because you didn't like the question.
No, sir.
Okay. So my question was, I'm glad you're back. My question was, if 10,000 Democrats and 10,000 Republicans do the thing you described, it doesn't change the margin of victory. So the question I have is, what evidence do we have that what you just described as possible was not only done, but was done by so many more Democrats than Republicans that it would change the outcome in Wisconsin?
I would like to contend that your premise of your question is wrong.
Okay.
I won't argue with your question.
Tell me how it's wrong.
Well, so my grandfather was in the 82nd Airborne Division. We have men and women who have died for this country so that we can have the right to vote.
Yes.
I personally believe that if you use the line of questioning that you've so chosen, that if both sides do it, it's okay.
That's not what I said, though.
Okay.
So it's a two-part question. First,
go ahead.
What evidence do we have that this was done in large numbers at all? Because that's been investigated in Wisconsin. And part two is, if it was done in large numbers, was it done disproportionately by one side?
So I would absolutely love to hear, first of all, the premise of the investigation that happened, because this is the perfect crime, David.
Okay.
For you to say that someone voted absentee and their ballot was determined that they actually did vote absentee, and it was found that they really didn't vote, because that would take a canvas. When I say a full forensic audit, that would take a canvas of the people that actually were elected or voted in this election.
So you're saying go door knocking all the people who supposedly voted and say, did you really vote?
Well, no. I'm asking your question. You said that was investigated. Please tell me, how was that investigated? Because that's the only method I know to verify what you just said.
Well, you do it with a sample. It was so again, if the standard is you want to look up every absentee vote and then go and check with the person, did you vote? It could be done. It would require an insane amount of resources. When we talk about science, when we talk about mathematical significance, you can take a sample of those and investigate them. And when we do that, when we take a representative sample, we find a combination of things. Usually a few people who were alive when they sent in their absentee ballot and died by election day. They didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people die. You find examples of like junior senior confusion where yes, a junior voted as their dead father, but the dead father didn't vote. So it's still just one vote. It was just counted for the wrong. You get to this point where there's really nothing there when you test a representative sample. So again, for me to say, let's check everyone, I would want to have a sample that raises concerns. And that hasn't happened when it's been looked at in Wisconsin. So
just to be clear, I did not know, and you're telling me that we did actually sample a county, because we did canvassing here in Wisconsin in Racine County.
Yeah.
And we found 400 people voting from a single family household, okay, in the 2020 election. So if you have different evidence, let's talk about that. But right now, I would love to do some digging, but I'm not going to sit and argue about.
Fair. Okay. I think I've raised enough questions for you to understand the origins of my skepticism, and you've pointed out what you want. So I think we can move on, but you have questions that you don't feel have been answered.
Just one more thing, sir.
Yeah.
Seriously, with regards to our election, to me, the issue is really can be solved in 8 words. It's simple. I would like our election process to be done in person, on paper, and count one day.
And that would apply to Donald Trump as well, right? Because he voted months early by mail. He wouldn't be able to do that.
Every person except the military and our elderly that are enabled to get out and vote. Because to me, the men and women of this country that have given their lives so that you and I can have the freedom to even have this conversation.
Right.
They died and gave their lives so that we could take the responsibility that we have to make sure we go vote. In my election process, right, in just my little district,
Yep.
less than 10% voted in the primary.
Yeah, that's depressing, and that's common. Sadly, low voter engagement. I want more voter engagement.
It is, but I guess to me the solution is I would like transparency. A lot of the questions that you and I are discussing, our system has been set up so that you and I can't come to a conclusion. We can't come to a realistic idea that we know that our vote was counted and cast clearly, and no one was.
Adam, listen, I got it. I want to get some other topics. One of the things I found super interesting was at one point you wrote you would outlaw contraceptives if you were given that opportunity. Do I have that right? And why would you do that?
Well, conveniently enough, you don't have it correct.
Okay.
The New York Post, I believe it was that where the
I don't have the source in front of me. I read a bunch of stuff before our interview.
Yeah. I did not write that. They asked me what I believed personally.
Yeah.
And I said very clearly that I believe that life begins at conception.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is your choice, and you make a decision before conception happens.
Okay.
You and I are grown adults. We know how children are come to this world. And if you make a choice, there's a consequence for that choice. I personally believe that stopping the natural progression of life, which you again made a decision in order to engage in sexual activity as a person, as an individual, that is something that I believe is wrong to stop life. As a representative, I'm not going to put the lid back on Pandora's box.
Okay, so you wouldn't move to ban contraception, but you're against it. In other words, you believe even a condom is stopping the process of life.
Personally.
Yeah, I'm talking about you personally. I know it's just you personally.
Well, there's a difference between policy and personally.
Yeah.
So personally, yes, I believe that you are actually just making a decision to engage in an activity and you want to remove the consequence.
And this applies not just to oral contraceptives and Plan B, but you're saying even a condom is interfering with, is it God's will that you find? Is it religiously based, or where are you coming up with this?
No, I'm saying you're trying to remove the consequence for your decision. You want to enjoy an activity that you have a physical pleasure, and you are removing the consequence. That is
Wouldn't that apply also to, for example, wearing a seatbelt in a car, where the natural consequence of driving fast might be that you get hurt in an accident and the seatbelt is artificially keeping you safe? I mean, it's sort of a weird argument, isn't it?
It's a weird argument. Safety and saving a life versus ending a life, to me, is an interesting.
But you consider wearing a condom to be ending a life?
Well, you're preventing a life, correct? So
life
has. It's deferring a consequence. That's what I'm saying.
Wow, that's interesting. I've heard right wingers say insurance shouldn't cover some of these things, but I've never heard anyone say that condoms are just straight up wrong. So you're saying that view, it's not based on your religious beliefs?
No, I believe that, like David, think about life. If life doesn't begin at conception, if you don't defend life at all stages, whether beginning or end, at what point does life have value?
Well, if you're using a condom, there's been no conception, right? You're going even earlier.
Touche. What happens at the end of life, sir? If you're telling me that we'd like to have no consequences for any decision that you make, that's what you're telling me, that we would like to have Plan B. Well, I decided to have sex, right? That's how conception happens. I would like to defer that consequence. I'm not going to say that government's going to legislate morality. They can't.
Okay.
That as a legislator.
Wow, this is mind-blowing, Adam. I've never heard this from anyone. I mean, you may be in some way the most socially conservative person. No condoms. And you. So how old were you when you came to this view, this anti-condom view?
When you say anti-condom, it kind of makes it kind of sound funny.
It is very funny. It's very. You're saying we have to defend all life, and is masturbation wrong? Can I ask that?
Is masturbation wrong?
Right, because then you're talking about millions of potential lives that are never going to get a chance.
As an individual.
Yeah, all as an individual.
Well, I have been taught, and I have come to the conclusion in my life that I believe that you are enjoying an activity there's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, you are actually, like you said, you are snuffing out life. But I have not come to
Wow.
masturbation is illegal, sir.
Wow. Adam, we are treading incredible new ground here, I have to say. This is good. This is going to be, I can't think of a more interesting note on which we would end than that. But this is really giving me a lot to think about, I think, for lack of a better term. The election is in November. Adam Steen is running to represent District 63 in the Wisconsin State Assembly. He has been endorsed by Donald Trump. We don't know whether Donald Trump is on the same page on some of the condom stuff. I think it would be interesting to talk to him about that. But Adam, I appreciate so much your time today and you laying out some of your views.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.